Happy Saturday. Welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Becky if you're new. Today, I just ran to the farmer's market and picked up 75 ears of corn from a local farmer. This is the farmer that I actually bought all my garlic from last year that I planted out and used as seed garlic, and they have the absolute best corn. So I ordered 75 ears of corn. They picked it yesterday and I ran to the farmer's market early this morning. Normally I don't do big projects on Saturday like this, but this was just picked and I want to process it while it is still at its height of ripeness. I also picked up a few peppers because one of the recipes we're going to be making this corn into calls for peppers, and I just froze a bunch of the peppers that are coming out of my garden. So I don't know if I'm going to have enough of my own peppers to make this recipe. I do need to run out to the garden to do some harvesting so that when we make some of the recipes we're going to make with this corn, I have some of the ingredients I need from the garden. But the first thing I need to do is shuck this corn, and I'm going to shuck this corn outside so I leave some of the mess outside. I just turned on my 30-quart pot to boil because we are going to need to blanch this corn before we put it up. It's going to take a while for that 30-quart pot to come to a boil, so I figured I would get that going while I start to shuck some of this corn. Last year, I put up 150 ears of corn and I think like 10 pints of corn relish. We ran out of corn relish a very long time ago, so my big goal for most of this is to make corn relish. I still have about 1/3 of the frozen corn I put up last year, maybe a little less than that. So whatever I don't end up turning into corn relish, we are going to do some freeze drying. I want to try freeze drying because I've never freeze dried corn before, and there's some salad kits that I like to get at the store that have freeze dried corn in it. It's so crunchy and delicious, so I want to do that. I'm going to freeze some of it, and we're going to make dinner with some of it because we are going to be chopping a lot of the same vegetables that for the corn relish that I would make for chili. And so even though it's a warm day today, I thought chili and cornbread sounded perfect and seems very appropriate for working with corn. So that's what we're going to do. So we've got a lot to do today, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I want to try to get it done as early as possible so that we can have fun this evening. So this is locally grown corn. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. And I'm actually gonna save some of these corn husks if I can find really nice, beautiful big ones. And I wanna dehydrate them. I don't know if these are big enough for tamales though. Like this one, I don't think is quite big enough for a tamale. So maybe this ear of corn is gonna be big enough if I save some of the, yeah, well, I don't know. You all gave me the suggestion last year that I should save some of the corn husks to make tamales. Like this one might be big enough. And I thought that was a great idea, but I had already composted all of the corn husks by the time I read your all's suggestion. So I'm gonna keep an eye out on these corn husks, and if I can save some for tamales, I'm gonna do that. I think I need to stand up to do this. This is my, I think, 5th or 6th year preserving corn, and it is one of my absolute favorite things to preserve. Now, I get the question sometimes, how come you didn't grow corn this year in your garden? And it's because for the last 4 years I've had a garden, I have attempted to grow corn, and I've actually given corn quite a bit of space in the garden, and I never have had a very good harvest. It has been, you know, for the amount of space I get, just very, very small, maybe a total of 2 or 3 ears of corn worth of corn. And so this year I finally decided that, you know, I think I'm going to go ahead and put the idea of trying to grow my own corn on the back burner for a little while, because in the end, I always end up going to some really amazing local farmers that grow beautiful organic corn in my area, and I buy it from them anyway. So I thought what I would do is go ahead and dedicate the space that I typically give to corn, which doesn't produce much other than some pretty stalks to look at, is I would dedicate that space to flowers. Now, I have gotten so much joy out of growing so many flowers this year, way more flowers than I've ever grown ever in the past, and it has brought me so much joy. And it's been a very, very productive and bountiful harvest. The flowers have given me more flowers than I know what to do with. I have friends that now come over to my house once a week and they collect a bouquet, and I'm able to not only grow enough flowers for my enjoyment, but also for the ones I love, which has been super, super fun. So that's one reason why I did not grow any corn this year. It's because I just haven't had success. And you all have given me so many tips and tricks on growing corn, and I greatly appreciate all those tips and tricks. So maybe one year I will pick up the idea of trying to grow my own corn again, and that will be something that gets put back on the list of things to grow. But for now, I have no problem supporting my local farmers and buying some absolutely beautiful and delicious corn. And the reason I like to put up my own corn is because it just tastes amazing. It is absolutely incredible. And I only want to put up what is better than what I can buy at the store. If I'm going to put the time and energy into putting it up, I want it to be delicious. And I think that putting up locally grown corn just tastes amazing. My pot of water has not even come up to a boil in the time it took me to shuck all 75 ears of corn. So we're gonna go run out into the garden and harvest some things we need to make our corn relish. And then hopefully our water will be boiling at that point. Oh, I didn't save any of the skins, what are they called? Husks of the corn, because they were just too small. The only way, I'm looking for a pair of shoes. The only way that I would have been able to make tamales is if they were the size of a finger. They were just not big enough, which is kind of a bummer because I think that would be really fun. I'm still waiting for this to come up to a boil. It's almost there, but in the meantime, I'm gonna get going on processing these veggies that we washed. So what I'm gonna do is cut up the peppers and onions separately, and we'll just see how many we have, and then we'll start blanching the corn. I need to get a cutting board here, got a compost bowl here, and we're just gonna start chopping vegetables. I want to get going on the corn relish before we start dinner because I want to make sure that I have enough peppers and onions and everything, because I can always go out to the garden and harvest some more for dinner tonight if I need to. Or I can grab some from the freezer because I already have started putting up quite a bit of peppers from my own garden. I was just thinking, I don't think that using frozen peppers in the relish would be the right call. That's why I picked up a few peppers from the farmer's market today. And I'm gonna mix all three of these colors. The recipe that I'm gonna be using for this corn relish is out of the Ball Home Complete Guide of Home Food Preservation, and it is on page 226. And it says you can use a combination of red and green bell peppers or peppers. So that's what we're gonna do today. And this is a water bath canning recipe. Even though we're gonna be using some low acid foods, we are gonna be adding vinegar to it. So we're almost making like a corn pepper, well, it's a relish, so it's kind of like a pickle, because we're gonna be adding so much vinegar to it, we don't need to pressure can it. And it turns out crunchy and delicious. And I like putting this relish on tacos, burrito bowls, chili, anything. It is so good. So I'm dicing these about the same size as a corn kernel, so everything is about the same size going into the relish. So I can hear that this water is now boiling. I have only the hot peppers to chop up, but I want to get my corn going because this is gonna take a few rounds to get all this corn blanched. And I am going to blanch it for 5 minutes. And I wanna get this done because I need this pot to make my relish. I did not make enough of this last year, so I want to make a big batch. This stuff is incredible. So that is about as much as I can fit in here. I'm gonna set my timer for 5 minutes, and I think I might actually take some of that water out. A little bit on the full side. I don't want this to boil over. And I need to get a big bowl out to take these corn cobs out of this pot when they're done. What we're doing is we are denaturing the enzyme that breaks down. As soon as a vegetable is picked, it starts to break down, and you can kind of stop that enzyme from breaking food down if you blanch it, and it just makes it a better product for when it goes into the freezer. Plus it's already pre-cooked, so when I go to use it throughout the fall, winter, and into the spring, in early summer, then when I want to use it, it's already pre-cooked, so I don't have to then cook it. Okay, so let me grab a big bowl. This is my 30-quart bowl. It's huge. My mom got this for me for Christmas one year, and I use it primarily during food preservation season, and I haven't used it since last summer, I don't think. So it definitely needs to be rinsed out. So now I'm gonna fill this bowl with really cold water. So I need somewhere to dry these corn cobs off once they are done being blanched and put in the cold water. So I just have this towel, and I'm gonna put this down here. That's probably good on that. It has now been 5 minutes. So I think I'm gonna put this bowl, you know what? This is too heavy to carry. I think what I'm gonna do is grab another bowl, and I'll just have to do this in batches. I'm just gonna let this sit in here for a few minutes till it kind of comes down to room temperature. Before I get going on more vegetable prep, Josh is actually able to help me. So I need to get this corn out of here, and I'm gonna show him how to cut the corn off the cob, and I'll show you how I'm gonna do it super fast and efficiently. I've got a little tool that I got as a gift, and it is a single-use item. I only use it when I process corn, but this little tool definitely makes this project a whole lot easier. Corn processing day is always a little bit of kind of move this to move that, but it is worth it because home frozen corn from a local farmer is just so delicious that I think it's worth this effort. So this is corn I still need to blanch. So I'm gonna bring it over here by my pot, and I just rinsed out this big bowl, and Josh is gonna help me cut the kernels off the cob, which is gonna be awesome because I'm gonna be able to get a lot more done a lot quicker with his help. So I have this little tool that I got as a gift, and you don't need this, but it does make this job a lot easier. I can link it for you down below. And you can just use a regular knife if you want to, but it's curved, so it goes around the cob really well. And there's a blade, and you just run it along, and it takes the kernels right off the cob. I always like to leave this end on the corn if I can, because it's nice to hold on to. I used to cut it off, and then I realized it really helps to have a handle. See how quickly this comes off? See, this one doesn't have a handle, so it's a little bit harder to hold on to. I just went over with Josh how to use that tool. He's got it down. This is going to be so fun, having him in the kitchen with me working on a project like this.
Absolutely.
He said absolutely. So I will have a few more ready for you in just about 6 minutes or so. These just need to blanch for 5 minutes, and then they just need to be shocked in the cold water. I think I'm going to be able to get all of this corn done in 4 rounds of this boiling water, which is fantastic. 1 basket done. I'm going to go ahead and get that out of here because the kitchen is feeling like there's a lot of things going on. Get this over here, put the lid on, and let this boil for 5 minutes. Is it good? Josh just had a sample of corn.
It's good corn.
That's really good corn. So worth it. I'm gonna go ahead and put some gloves on because I'm gonna finish chopping these jalapenos, and I just don't know how hot they are, so I don't want to run the risk of getting my hands too spicy. So usually when I work with hot peppers, I just throw gloves on. And I did de-seed these jalapenos. These jalapenos I'm gonna dice quite a bit smaller. I'm gonna just mix all my peppers together, and this is gonna be the pepper mix that I use for tonight's dinner and for this corn relish. Okay, so peppers are done. I'm gonna go ahead and mix up all the colors of peppers that I have. One recipe of the corn relish calls for 4 cups of diced and seeded peppers. So I probably have about 8 cups here, so I might have to dice a few more or get out some frozen ones from the freezer for tonight's dinner. We'll just have to see. So now what I'm gonna do is chop up all these onions. But before we do that, I can go ahead and get some of this corn out of this pot. I'm gonna let this come back to a boil before I put more corn in it. Now I'm gonna go ahead and process these onions. And I got the question, why did I not save the onion tops when we processed the onions for the pickled onions and the caramelized onions, the onions that had bolted? Because you've seen me in the past save the green onions to turn into onion top pesto or to freeze dry it and turn it into onion powder. And the reason is once onions get this mature, the greens get kind of bitter. So you really, if you're going to save the onion tops, you want to top your onions when they're still young and tender. These are kind of dried out and they're just not very good. And so they're not worth saving. And that's why these onion tops are just going to get put into the compost. For each recipe, we only need 1 cup of diced onions. I'm hoping for a quadruple recipe. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough peppers for a quadruple recipe. So I need probably 4 cups of onions. I'm gonna rinse these onions one more time, and I'm gonna rinse this cutting board off one more time before we chop these onions for our final product. And these onions are strong, even though the variety of onion that I'm chopping right now is a Walla Walla, which is supposed to be a sweet onion, but these onions are getting my eyes. So because this water doesn't have any ice in it, I'm gonna go ahead and pour this out because it's already kind of a little bit warm. And I'm gonna refill it with cold water. We're on a well, so our water is pretty cold coming out of the faucet. And I can see that Josh's compost bowl is getting really full. And so I'm actually not gonna take the corn cobs to the compost. I'm gonna give them to the chickens and let them enjoy them. So we're gonna go do that real quick here. You can save the corn cobs and you can make corn cob broth if you want, or you can save them and turn it into corn cob jelly. I have saved the corn cobs a couple years in a row and never turned it into corn cob jelly. So I don't think I'm gonna save any corn cobs this year. So instead of having these corn cobs take up freezer space in my freezer to then eventually probably just be given to the chickens, I'm gonna skip that step and I'm gonna go ahead and give these to the chickens. They will love them. I also threw the pepper seeds and tops to the chickens as well. Chickens can't taste spicy things, and so it's actually really good for them to give them spicy peppers. Some people will even supplement their feed with red pepper flakes. And so I always give them all the pepper seeds whenever I'm cutting or dicing peppers. And I already know that this is gonna be way more onions than we need, so I'll just freeze whatever we don't end up using, and I will use those onions in later dishes throughout the growing season. I'm gonna go through all my bowls today probably, which is okay, that's why I have them. I'm gonna go give this to the chickens real quick, rinse this bowl out, and put my onions in here. Josh is going faster than I can blanch this corn. He is already out of blanched corn.
I'm having fun over here.
Did you hear him? He said he's having fun. He's snacking on it and it is so good. It's so good. This bowl doesn't have very much water in it, so I figured I would just get all this corn out of the pot and then I'll fill it with water once I get all this corn out of the pot. We only need to do one more batch of corn, and then we've blanched all the corn. So I got the last corn out of the pot going in this cold water. I'm gonna let my pot cool down a little bit and then I'm gonna add some cold water and drain it and rinse it because I need my big pot to make our corn relish. I figured before I start going on the relish, I'm gonna go ahead and get dinner going here. So in this pot, I just put some butter and I have 1 pound of ground beef. I'm gonna get this in here. I was able to sweep the floor from little extra kernels. Josh is just finishing the last of the corn. I can't believe how much quicker it goes when you have help. It's amazing. So what we're gonna do is brown this beef in this pot. And I'm not gonna add any of the peppers that I chopped up because that's my limiting factor when it comes to how much corn relish I can make. So I'm gonna go ahead and just measure out how much peppers I have. And I'm gonna grab some frozen peppers and I'll put that in tonight's dinner. So one recipe of corn relish calls for 4 cups of peppers. So I've rinsed this big pot out and I'm just gonna count and see how many I have. So that's 1, 2, 10. So I can do 2.5 batches for corn relish. So here's the recipe we are gonna be following today. Now there's 2 ingredients that are optional. I'm gonna leave the pickle crisp out. I've never added it because I don't keep it in my house and it's totally delicious. I also keep the clear gel out. I've never used it and it's good without it. Now I'm gonna go ahead and measure out my onions. And now my corn that Josh so perfectly cut off the cob. I'm getting my stove on And now I'm gonna add my vinegar. Two. This is why I buy a lot of vinegar this time of year, because you go through a lot of vinegar. Next, we're gonna add salt. And the rest of our seasonings. I can tell that our beef is almost done. We've got to add our sugar though. You're all done?
All done.
Josh got it all done, which is fantastic. So this just needs to come up to a boil. We need the sugar to dissolve. Because we're not using any clear gel or anything like that, we're not looking for this to thicken up. We just need this to come to a boil and have our sugar dissolve. This is already so beautiful. And hopefully this is enough for 1 year's worth. I'm gonna go ahead and put the lid on this. And I'm gonna keep working on our chili. So I'm gonna go ahead and cook our onions and peppers with our beef. So we have our dinner going, we have our corn relish cooking, and after putting all of our corn into our corn relish, we still have this big bowl. I think this is a 20-quart bowl, and Josh is gonna work on filling bags and vacuum sealing them. He's gonna put 3 cups in each bag. And then here, these are the extra onions that I diced that we don't need. Josh, can you put 1 cup of these in a bag and vacuum seal it?
Just 1 bag?
No, 1 cup per
empty.
bag. Yes, until it's empty. Okay. And this will be meal prep sometime in the future when I need diced onions. Oh, that looks great. So normally when I do corn, I keep a little bowl so I can dump that out. And here is our first bag of corn for 2024 fall and winter of 2025. So I think we're gonna be able to get a lot of bags. I do need just a little bit saved for our corn bread for tonight. And I'm gonna put a little bit of corn in our chili. Or do you want corn in the chili?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Gotta have some sweetness.
Perfect. So back to what I was saying, it's really nice to have pre-chopped onions and peppers in the freezer, especially if they come from the garden. Even if they don't come from the garden, if you get them at a local farmer's market or you get them on sale at the grocery store, it's so nice, or you buy them in the frozen section at your grocery store. It's just really nice to be able to have the convenience of opening that and throwing it in your pot and not having to dice every time you need onions or peppers. Now, in an ideal world, I would have diced enough onions or peppers fresh and I wouldn't have pulled out some frozen ones, but I wanted to use my peppers for my corn relish. So I'm gonna get a couple more ingredients into my chili, I think. I'm gonna go with my spices so that I can toast those in a little bit of that butter that we originally started cooking this chili with. I've got garlic powder, cumin, coriander. I'm not measuring anything. Chipotle, paprika. Oh, it smells good already. Now I'm gonna open a couple jars of home canned beans and some tomatoes from last year's garden. I had some broth in the fridge that needs to be used up. I'm not gonna drain my beans. I'm gonna get some corn in there. I love that we are emptying jars and filling jars at the same time. So this morning, while I was at the farmer's market picking up the corn, Josh actually ran a bunch of jars for me in the dishwasher. So my dishwasher is clean, so unfortunately I can't get these into the dishwasher, but that's okay because I have clean jars to fill with our relish. I think what I'm gonna do now is actually make our cornbread so that can be cooking while our chili is cooking and while we can our relish. So let me get out all the ingredients we need for the cornbread. And I'm gonna preheat my oven, and I need to go grab some more towels. Before I make my cornbread, I'm gonna start jarring up this relish because it is now done. So I'm gonna get out these clean jars from the dishwasher that Josh washed up for me. We haven't had corn relish in our house for quite some time because we went through it a long time ago. So we're really excited to have this back on the pantry shelf here pretty shortly. So I'm gonna water bath can my relish in this pot. So I need to empty this pot into all these jars, and then I need to rinse that out and get that back on the stove. I'm gonna go ahead and fill these jars to the proper headspace according to the recipe. And I can tell you right now that this is one of our favorite things that I make it's not our favorite. I don't know what our favorite is, but it's one of our favorite things that I make during the food preservation season. We have already gone through almost a whole jar, and I am looking at this and thinking, doing the math, like, I don't know if this is going to last us a year. This is the third time I've made this recipe. The first time I made it 3 years ago, I just made a really small batch. That's kind of what I do now when I do a new canning project, is I kind of make a smaller batch, see if we like it, and if we do, then the following year I make more, and then I can kind of gauge how much I should make to last us a year. When I first started canning and I would do a new recipe, I would make a huge batch, and I learned that that's not the best idea because sometimes you put a lot of effort and resources and time into a recipe, and then you find out it is not your family's favorite. So my new philosophy when it comes to canning projects or putting different things up is to start small and see if we like it, and then make more if we need more. Now, this corn relish is so good. It's like sweet and tangy, and it's got the peppers, so we kind of use it as like a corn salsa almost, and it's just so delicious. Now, Josh is helping me fill these bags and seal them. And I realized the next day, because I was kind of focusing on the canning project and making dinner, and he was focusing on filling these bags for the freezer, it dawned on me the next day that I was like, oh my goodness, I completely forgot to save any corn to freeze dry. And so I haven't done this yet, but my plan is to run to the farmer's market at some point in the next week or so, pick up maybe just like 10 ears of corn, blanch it, and freeze dry it. Because I do want to try that, because many, many, many of you have said it is one of your favorite things to freeze dry. So I want to make sure I am able to try that. I got all my jars filled. I still need to wipe the rims and put lids on, and I debubble them and do all that part. But my jars are pretty warm, so I need to get water. I just rinsed this out and kind of cleaned it a little bit. I need to get warm water in here, and I need to get this on the stove so that once these jars are ready to go, I can start canning them. Now I'm going to go ahead, debubble, wipe the rims with a little bit of vinegar, put a new lid on, put a ring on, and then we will water bath can these. Now, last year I tried pressure canning corn for the first time. This can be a safe water bath canning recipe because there's so much vinegar in it that it drops the acidity level to a safe level to water bath can. But if you just put straight corn into a jar with water, that is not acidic enough, so you can't water bath can it, you need to pressure can it. And I tried pressure canning corn last year for the first time. I've always freezed it the years before that, and we liked it, but it certainly wasn't our favorite. I like the freshness that you get when you freeze it, because when you pressure can it, you actually kind of cook it for a second time. And so I decided not to do any pressure canning of corn this year because I know that I am super excited about pulling the frozen corn out of my freezer to use. And when it came to having to use the jarred corn, I wasn't as excited about it. So if I'm going to go through the effort of putting something up, I want to make sure that I'm excited about using it. Now that just goes for corn. When it comes to other things, I prefer them canned over frozen. I love having canned broth on my pantry shelf that I make because it is so incredibly convenient to pop that jar open and use it versus frozen broth and having to think about thawing it. So for me, it's just been a journey of learning how do I like different things preserved. for convenience and for flavor. And I do want to try to make sure that if I'm going to go through the effort of putting something up, that I think it tastes better than what I can get at the grocery store. So that is why you will see, or you won't see, any pressure canned corn on my pantry shelf this year, because we prefer it frozen. So now that I have got all the jars ready to go, I unloaded my dishwasher. I did some cleaning. Josh helped me get all of the corn vacuum sealed along with the onions. I tell you later that they were 1 cup measures of the onions, but he actually did 1.5 cups in each bag, which was perfect. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and make some cornbread. This is my mom's cornbread recipe, which is my absolute favorite. Now it is a sweet cornbread, so I know that's not everyone's favorite. I can link this recipe down below. We like sweet cornbread around here, and so we love this recipe. And this was the first time I've ever put actual corn kernels in it, and we really, really liked it. I don't know if I would do that every single time. I kind of wanted to do that on this day just because corn was kind of the name of the game. And so we really, really liked it. And I will do it again, but probably not every single time I make cornbread. My timer just went off for my first round of relish. So I have that off with the canner. I'm gonna let that cool for about 5 minutes, and then I'll take those jars out and get one more jar, or the rest of the jars in there. I did have one lid pop off, so I'm thinking that when I was putting the jars in there, maybe I forgot to screw on a lid all the way. I'm not exactly sure, but one thing I know is that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bags, 3 cups each of corn. And I'm gonna write on here 3 cups. It is easier to do this before you fill them, but we were just moving and grooving and did not do that. I'm writing the year on here as well. Now this is way, way less frozen corn than I did last year, but I still have, like I said, quite a bit of frozen corn in my freezer. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring this out to my freezer, and I've got a bag where I have my corn. I think what I'm gonna do actually is just throw this in the freezer, let it freeze. Once it's frozen, then I will get out my corn from last year, because I've got a bag in my freezer with the corn. I'll take all that frozen corn from last year, put this on the bottom of that bag, put that on top just to make sure I use that up first. And we are gonna be good to go. That was so helpful having Josh. I did not cut one cob of corn except for the ones that I was showing you how to use that tool. He got them all done. He also filled all these bags, and then we got 1, 2, 3, 4 bags, 1 cup each of diced onions. This is so awesome. This is gonna make meal prep coming in the future a lot easier. We have dinner done. I just have to wait for my cornbread to come out of the oven. So I'm gonna go throw this all in the freezer. I'm not gonna organize it necessarily right now. I'm just gonna get it in there, and then once it's frozen, I'll organize it. Actually, let me show you what I have left, because I haven't even really done an inventory. This is my corn from last year. So this is probably maybe a quarter, not a third, from last year. So since I already got this out, I'm gonna take this out. This was a yellow corn, and this year we did a white corn. I'm gonna get this corn in the bottom here. Some of these are smaller bags too from last year, and I definitely gravitated to the 3 cup ones the most, so that's why I only did 3 cups this year. Back in the freezer this goes, along with our onions. So this now has been off for a little bit, so I'm gonna go ahead and empty this. We got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. We would have had 20 pints of corn relish, but one of them, the top, popped off. So let me check my cornbread. I did forget to set a timer on my cornbread, but I'm gonna be in here washing a mountain of dishes. I did get my dishwasher completely unloaded and loaded, and it is now running. We made a lot of dishes today, but we also made a lot of progress, and I would not have been able to get all of this done if it wasn't for help, which is incredible. It definitely made the time go by much quicker, and it was much more enjoyable having help in the kitchen. It's always fun when you can find a canning partner. Okay, getting these out of here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and load these jars in here. I might need to put a little bit more water in here. I actually think I'm gonna do that because this water is pretty warm still. So I'm gonna put in some colder water because there's gonna be less jars going in here. It's gonna need more water to cover the jars. And I'm gonna put cold water just so that these jars are less likely to break. So friend, that was so productive today. It is now the craziness of harvest, not just from my garden, but harvest from other farmers and trying to take advantage of the abundance that is right now. We have dinner done. I just need my chili to kind of thicken up and to reduce and get really flavorful, and my cornbread to come out of the oven. The way I'm gonna serve my chili is I'm gonna shred some cheese, sour cream, some hot sauce, maybe some pickled onions on top with our cornbread, and that is it. And then I am done for the day. Okay, that water's pretty warm, but it's not boiling like it was. These jars are still pretty warm. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these in here. Once this comes up to a boil, I'll process them for the same amount of time. I am going to do those dishes, and then I am going to relax and enjoy a dinner that I have already cooked. So friend, if you want to watch more of my videos, I'll pop some here. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. I want to thank you for taking time again out of your day. If you've been here before, if you're new, welcome. And I can't wait to see you next time. I hope you are enjoying the abundance that is harvest season. Bye, friend.